and welcome back to yet another episode of the Plant.Body.Soul podcast. And this time we are so excited to have with us our friend Yve Dizes. She is a spiritual concierge and a human design expert. Yes, what is that, right?
Tell us about that.
Yeah, please tell us about your journey and how the heck you got started in this field.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm very
Of course.
excited. It's spiritual concierge. I'll maybe start there. I'll flip it.
Okay.
So spiritual concierge is a term I made up, and it's a nod to my time in the hospitality industry. And what I learned in the hospitality industry is that a really good concierge is dialed into their community. They know everything about the community. They know what's happening when, what businesses can do what, and they never tell you exactly what to do. They just give you suggestions. They guide you, right?
Sure.
To have the best possible experience that you can.
Yeah.
And so as I started to look at what I was truly called to do in the spiritual community with the gifts that I was born with and with the knowledge that I was able to attain, I realized that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to guide people to have the best possible experience rather than being a coach or, you know, any of the other categories that currently existed. So I came up with spiritual concierge, and it
great.
kind of stuck. So here we are.
I love it.
I
It's
love
a
it too.
fascinating title. I mean,
Great.
it's thought-provoking right
Right.
away.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
thank you. Yeah. It's been good to me. For sure.
Good. Good.
Yeah. And then human design. This is a fun story because I love the generosity of being called an expert. And I would say, rather than an expert, I would say I'm a natural practitioner. And the distinction there is that I came to human design super reluctantly. I had already learned astrology, rembered astrology from another timeline. I was already trained in a shamanic tradition at that point, had already studied with a yogi for 10 years, was like pretty dialed into my practice. And I had a couple of clients who kept going, "You've got to read about human design." And I'm like, I don't need another system, guys. Like, I've got a lot. So fast forward, I end up seeing a clip of the creator of human design talking. And he says, the generator aura is enveloping. It's like standing next to someone and being hugged by their energy.
Wow.
And I lost my mind. Because for my whole life, I had been able to see people's auras since I was a child. And as a very young child, I classified people into these groups based on how their aura performed.
Wow.
And one of my groups was the huggers.
Oh, no way.
No way.
So when I heard that, I was like, is he talking about the thing that I do? Is that what's happening? And lo and behold, it was a system cataloging and expanding on the way that I perceived the world since I was a child, which, by the way, I had never met anybody else who perceived the world that way. I thought that, you know, for the most part, what I was doing was never going to be able to be explained. And then here comes human design, and it's a 70 to 80% match of how I see the world and how I see people's energies interact. So that's my journey to human design.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Well, for our listeners, and I'm new to human design, but for our listeners who might not be as familiar as Jen and obviously yourself, could you just take just a moment and provide just an overview of human design and how it can really empower individuals in their personal and professional lives?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you ask a traditional human design practitioner to describe human design, they're going to tell you that it's a synthesis of the Eastern chakra system, astrology, Hellenistic and Vedic, the I Ching, and quantum physics.
Wow.
Okay. I personally like to describe human design as a tool to understand the unconscious patterning that exists in this incarnation of your experience.
Wow.
And so we can use human design for a myriad of things. It's great for business because it really shows you how you're going to interact in each environment and with different types of people, which, as we know in business, is a lot of the battle.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 Understanding your
Who you're working with.
your business partner, your
Yeah.
teammates.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So just knowing how to fill in those gaps. And then also knowing what kind of environment is right for you, which is something that in the West, we don't spend a lot of time thinking about. But when you're in a good environment, you know it, right? Like, I think all of us
Oh, yeah.
could relate to that.
I think you can relate to that. I think we both can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Environment is incredibly important.
Right.
Especially here, it's like not. I don't want to say painstakingly, but it's so intentional in the
Yeah.
spaces that we create here.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that makes sense.
So it's, it's one of those things that when you know it and you start living it, it's life-changing. Like this is the thing that my clients come back and, oh my gosh, if I would have just known that I was a cave person and I just needed to stop working in coffee shops like 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
You know.
Can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit more? The environments, what are they?
Yeah. So the environments in human design are not literal. So if the listeners are looking at their human design chart, they might see like the word kitchen or mountain or shore. These are meant to represent the energy that those places naturally contain. So for example, you're both kitchens. People. And if you think about a kitchen is where we gather. It's where we bring ingredients together. It's where people come together in the home. It tends to be the heart of the home. There's often a lot of activity in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. So kitchens people are good in those environments, right? Like they do really well. Sure. A cave person, for example, which is what I am, and I'm the most selective cave person that you can be, means that I'm going to do well in a space that's very protected. There's not a lot of entrances and exits. I can really control who's in there. I can keep it nice and, womb-like.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get, mountains people. So those are people who they like to look down at the busyness, but they don't want to be in it necessarily.
Right.
They maybe just want to kind of be surveying their kingdom, right?
Oh, wow.
So there's, I think I said all of them, but there's,
Shore.
there's
You mentioned shore, right?
shores,
So
shores.
what's that like?
So shores are where two different environments come together.
Okay.
So you might, I tell people who are shores people, sit on patios.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because you're not totally away from the restaurant, but you're like kind of in between.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. So shore, it's where the land and the sea meet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And ironically, I would say most of the time people like the place that's like the name for their environment. Like most of my kitchens people are like, yeah, I spend a lot of time in the kitchen.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the hub for me.
Right. Yeah.
Same.
So, and I was a spelunker in high school.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Like long before, I had, but
Caver.
I loved caves. Yeah. I just
Literally
love caves. So, but it doesn't have to be that way. So if you're a cave person and you're like, oh, I'm terrified of caves, that's okay. It doesn't have to be literal. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.